am Dr. Kanakadurga, social work educator, retired from PG Center of Andhra University. This lesson gives an account of Rational Emotive Therapy and Gestalt therapy, which are useful for the treatment of people with problems. Rational Emotive Therapy by Albert Ellis. He says that emotional problems are due to mistakes or illogical thinking of the people. Gestalt therapy. Gestalt therapy will help such individuals to understand the environment realistically and correct their attitudes and feelings. The objectives of this lesson is to explain the basic philosophy of rational emotive therapy and Gestalt therapy. Therapeutic effectiveness of these therapies also. Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy of Albert Ellis emphasizes on clients' irrational beliefs that lead to unwanted feelings and self-defeating actions. Counselling involves removing irrational beliefs and replacing them with more rational beliefs. View of human nature. Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy is based on the view that rational thinking leads to healthy ways of living in people who show unconditional acceptance of self and others. Ellis says self-acceptance is different from self-esteem, which is, according to him, is an unstable process how others view us and appreciate. They think they are worthy enough to live in this world, or else they develop self-defeating thoughts. Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy believes that there is complex interaction between thinking, feeling and behavior states as they interpret these cognitive processes and are responsible for self-defeating emotions and dysfunctional behaviors. Such interpretation can be both conscious and unconscious. In other words, the reactions to events are filtered through one's belief system, and the individual responds consciously or unconsciously to the belief system and not to the event. If the belief system is irrational, the individual responds with self-defeating emotions and self-perpetuating dysfunctional behavior. If the belief system is rational, the individual responds emotions that perpetuate healthy functioning in the world. Thus, a strong emotion such as grief after the loss of a significant person or sadness if one's house is flooded with hurricane would be a reasonable response, but a deep depression after ending relationship or road rage at a fellow driver would be an unreasonable response to an unreasonable belief system. This oversensitivity is sensitivity plus disturbance. The depth and time of the sensitivity is related to one's own belief system. Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapists view the individual belief system generally early in life, and it can be challenged and changed by analyzing belief system. These therapists would not believe in the past as it inhibits progress towards change. Showing unconditional acceptance. The understanding of human nature allows the therapist to show unconditional acceptance towards the client. The therapist can understand that some people exhibit behavior that are toxic for themselves and others. The acceptance of individual by the therapist allows client to freely discuss their thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Teaching the Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy. It is a psycho-educational approach teaching about philosophy of rational emotive behavior therapy is a critical piece of therapy. Therapists actively teach philosophy of rational emotive therapy, encourage clients to read books and printed material, listen to audio-visual aids, and visit websites that explain rational emotive therapy philosophy. Being active and directive. Listening is not only a tool, but it helps to understand client's situation, and questioning encourages the clients to speak. The therapist will conduct a client assessment that includes giving tests, gathering biographic information, and discussion of the client and life circumstances. The information obtained is used to assess clients' distortion of events, irrational thinking, understanding of rational emotive therapy philosophy, and the specific intervention aims at changing the way the client thinks, feels, and acts. Challenging clients. Challenging clients should not be confused with confrontation. Challenging occurs when the therapist suggests to the client to examine the current ways of thinking, feeling, and behavior process. If the client is convinced that change would be helpful to him, he can choose to adapt more rational beliefs as well as healthier behavior and feelings. Demonstrating the ABC of feeling and behaving. Rational emotive therapists use ABC model to demonstrate clients how irrational beliefs B are causing emotional distress and not the situation C, but the activating event A. Encouraging disputing or dysfunctional cognition, behavior, and emotion. As clients learn the philosophy of rational emotive therapy, they realize the cognition, behavior, and emotion have not been healthy. Thus, they are encouraged by the therapist to dispute unhealthy ones and replace them with healthy ones. Disputation can occur cognitively, behaviorally, and emotionally. The rational emotive behavior therapy process involves a series of steps that include assessing client situation and hypothesizing how ABC apply, teaching the rational emotive behavior therapy philosophy, demonstrating how client's situation fits the rational emotive behavior therapy model, directing change process, and reinforcing change and terminating the relationship. Step 1. Client comes to the therapy as his or her feelings are upset, and it is the job of the therapist to assess the client's situation and understand client's feelings. The therapist will hypothesize how client is distorting events and causing himself or herself distress. The assessment is done using standardized scale tests, biographic data inventories, client's self-report, and interviewing. The assessment is an ongoing process throughout the therapy. Therapist considers how ABC applies to the client's situation. Throughout the therapy, the therapist shows acceptance towards the client, encouraging the client to examine his or her life, to take up a new philosophy of life altogether. Step 2. Teaching philosophy. After assessing client situation, the therapist formulates a hypothesis and shares it with the client. At first, client is made to understand the philosophy of rational emotive therapy. To understand rational emotive behavior therapy philosophy, pamphlets, books, internet resources, and other aids are used so that client can read either in the office or at home. Step 3. Demonstrating how client situation can be improved with REBT philosophy. Once understanding and acceptance of philosophy occurs, client is ready to hear how therapist's hypothesis applies to his situation. This is done when the therapist presents his or her hypothesis in the ABC formulation. To facilitate the process, the list of irrational beliefs and/or the core rational beliefs is distributed to the client. Step 4. Guiding the change process. The client, after learning rational emotive behavior therapy philosophy, tries to understand how it applies to his or her situation and tries to work for change. Change occurs at 3 levels: cognitive, feeling, and behavioral, and occurs when the client is able to dispute irrational thoughts and dysfunctional behavior, which leads more effective responses. Step 5. Reinforcing change and terminating the relationship. As the client becomes comfortable with rational emotive therapy philosophy, they are able to apply it to other aspects of lives. They develop strong acceptance of self and acceptance of others. Ultimately, the client adapts a new style of life relating to the world in which he or she replaces irrational beliefs with rational beliefs. The process can be explained in the following manner with an example. In case of an individual whose father died and mother who is 70 staying alone and is not willing to stay with her son, that is activating event A. The son is worried as he is not doing his duty as a son, and he thought that his mother has not taken proper decision. Ellis called it irrational belief B. And he started eating poorly and is not sleeping because of the worry and anxiety C. Here the rational emotive therapy philosophy offers treatment to the son. The therapists use wide range of techniques to dispute the irrational thoughts D. After counseling based on the theory, then the son realized that his mother is capable of managing herself at the age of 70, and she has every right to take independent decision to stay alone. He can help her whenever she wanted her son's assistance. This is developing a new thinking based on rationality. This is new effective response E by the son. And this therapy helps in changing illogical thinking as well as irrational thinking, which is coming in the way of the psychological health of the individuals. This therapy is developed by Fridge Perls. Gestalt means whole in German language. It is a German word which means whole. Gestalt means whole. The central view to human nature is that The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, that the organism functions as a whole. Human beings constantly strive for balance in their life, but because of outside events as well as by internal conflict, the balance may be disturbed. Irrespective of the source, imbalance disturbs the individual. Thus, difficulty in marriage influences one's own job performance. Failure in school may affect interpersonal relations. Success will have an impact on friendships. The concept of a whole applies to the interaction between physiological and psychological aspects of an individual. Emotions are expressed through physical means. To understand the individual, non-verbal behavior plays an important role. Fritz Perls believed that instinct plays an important role in motivating behavior. He emphasizes hunger instinct, which motivates persons to distort the elements of environment. Although instinct drives organism, it is not labeled either as bad or good, but labeled as effective or ineffective. The counseling process. The purpose of Gestalt counseling is to encourage personal growth. Neurosis is an interruption of growth process, and defensiveness is a process that fuels energy away from living effectively. Senses will interpret the environment to the individual. Defenses isolate the individual from new experiences. Gestalt therapy counselors, with their sessions, acquaint them with new experiences. Keeping defensive behavior aside, counselors, with their direct confrontation, encourage their clients to understand discrepancies between thoughts and feelings of life. Frequently, confrontation is based on discrepancies between the client's verbal statements and his non-verbal behavior. For example, it is common for people to laugh when embarrassed in an attempt to dismiss the embarrassment. The counselor will point out the contradiction in his or her statement and questions the client for the true statement. A number of techniques are used by Gestalt therapy counselors to focus on bringing then and there experience and to here and now. If a client reveals his disagreement with his or her spouse, the client is asked to react some aspects of dispute, alternatively taking the role of self and spouse. Here, client, instead of talking about the client, re-experiences the occurrence and effect is recreated. New understanding leads to new acceptance of oneself or others. Such process is called finishing unfinished business. Gestalt therapy counselors uses role play with their clients. Counselors play the role of significant others and the client is playing the role of himself, with the counselor playing client and the significant other, or with the client playing both the roles. The client sometimes is asked to change the chairs as he or she shifts roles. Another technique, empty chair, occurs when the client is asked to play separate parts of him, the assertive self and the weak self. In all the role plays, counselor permits the client to talk about situation to be able to structure roles and moves to bring action into here and now. The counseling is not interpretive, but does not interpret the behavior of the client, and Gestalt therapy counselor needs diagnostic skills to find out the defensive behavior of the client. The counselors encourage the client to move forward toward authentic behavior which neglects his or her inner state accurately. To reach the stage is a difficult one. Client understands his authentic self and participates fully in daily life experiences. The success makes the client a tendency to move freely towards the growth process, and no more counseling is required. This therapy, using many techniques like role play, empty chair, and other techniques, which will help the individual to correct himself in becoming more realistic in understanding the environment so that they will have better interpersonal relations. Albert Ellis propounded the theory of Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy, and this therapy maintained that emotional disturbances are the result of mistaken, illogical ideas and about particular situation. The individual blames himself and others for his failures. The rational emotive behavior corrects the self-defeating thoughts and reorganizes perception so that thinking becomes logical, rational, and self-verbalization becomes rational and logical. Actually, the ABC cognitive distortion is causing the problem, but not the event that happened in the life of the individual. Activity event A is influenced by belief system B, whereby they result in consequences C. Robert Ellis postulates that the individual's belief system is changed. Consequences can give positive results. The second treatment approach discussed in this lesson is Gestalt therapy. Individuals become neurotic by losing touch with the senses that interfere with interpreting the environment. Gestalt counseling emphasizes on increasing awareness through various techniques like role play, empty chair, etc., to interpret the environment more realistically.